Good evening. Welcome to Temple Hillel. My name is Cindy Gross, and I'm the creator and the organizer of tonight's program. Just a couple of brief business things to deal with, because you really have three amazing speakers and a wonderful moderator you want to speak to in question and answers and hear what they have to say about a very important issue. First of all, thanks to Temple Hillel. It was the only shul asked that offered its building and services without any conditions. Rabbi Graber had one request, that I let you know that after the 9 days, there are many social and cultural activities that all of you could participate in with Glatt Kosher food. Please check out the Temple Hillel Facebook, look for emails and notices, and please join us for these activities. You are all welcome. We are one community. Second, tonight's program is part of Wednesday's Stop Iran Now rally in Times Square at 5:30. I have been involved since day one, and if you have any questions, any concerns, please feel free to contact me personally at the RSVP Gmail account that you all responded to. This is the most important rally of our lifetime. I have never worked with a more dedicated group of people. A lot of them have flyers that they are handing out with important information for you to take, such as who to contact in Congress, who to contact in the Senate, and what you're supposed to say. There are papers being handed out. I'd like to recognize some of the people of the program who have been partners tonight and partners in the program Wednesday. Richard Allen of JCC Watch. Shoshana Heiken of Hatera Kohanim. Lynn Nissim, is she here from Hashoah? She's supposed to be here. Helen Friedman from American Friends for a Safe Israel. And of course, the Zionist Organizations of America with its president here, Mort Klein, who has been at the forefront. Again, if you need any information, please contact me locally or any of the people on the flyers. I want to tell you about something that's come up because of the rally that you should be very well aware of. There have been many hoaxes through emails, robocalls, and personal meetings deliberately giving out wrong information about what is going on. Unless an organization's name is on this flyer that has been approved, do not take their information. Congressman Steve Israel's name has been used and tied to a hoax. Some rabbis have misled their congregations about information regarding tonight's program and the rally. So please look carefully at the Wednesday rally flyer and look to these organizations for accurate, detailed, updated information. Third, this program does not endorse any parties or candidates or any official locally in office. It is very nice that politicians from both parties attend our functions and publish articles. However, until their vote is complete and made public, I urge all of you to contact them about how you feel, and then after you see their vote and that they voted against this horrible bill, then thank them for standing up and supporting Israel and the security of the United States. Should any of our local officials feel the need to vote for this deal, I can guarantee you that come their next elections, that Jews, Christians, and moderate Muslims will join in numbers to help find new representation in all levels of our government in Hempstead, Albany, and Washington. We are very lucky to have 3 local assemblymen here tonight. Congressman Brian Curran, Assemblyman Brian Curran, Assemblyman Edward Ra, and Assemblyman David McDonough. They have the ear of people in Washington as well, and you could ask them for your help, and they will contact your congressmen and your senators that their constituents do not want this deal. For the first time in our lifetimes, national security and the security of Americans abroad is the #1 issue for any level election for 2015 and 2016. Keep that in mind, and remember to stop Iran now. I need to thank many people who helped put this together. A lot of them are named on the program, so thank you. And then additionally, I'd like to thank Ed Weintraub and Richner Publications for helping us out a lot in getting the word out about tonight's event. And Ed didn't even know that I wrote You Would Highlights in 1978, and I knew Edith and Bob Richner very well. And I need to thank many of the rabbis who have worked tirelessly with me, from the Young Israel of West Hempstead, Young Israel Oceanside, Young Israel of North Woodmere, Rabbi Dovie Friedman of Oceanside, Rabbi Stephen Graber of Temple Hillel, and the other 2 rabbis as part of the Conservative Coalition, Rabbi Matt Futterman, Rabbi Bruce Ginsburg, and from you at East Rockaway Jewish Center, Rabbi Andrew Warmflesh, who has been a tremendous support of the program. I'd just like to briefly introduce one person, Lori Cardoza-Moore. Lori is considered in the press and around the world as the woman who is going to stop BDS. Lori is going to be staying here. Oh, I forgot to also thank her group, Proclaiming Justice to the Nations, who is also a big part of Wednesday's rally. Lori is going to be arranging a private meeting with 30 lucky people, because for her to talk about all the things she's done just won't be enough time tonight. So if you are interested in meeting Lori, please, tomorrow, email only. We will accept the first 30 people that would like to join in a parlor meeting with Lori before the rally on Wednesday. So, Lori, just one word. Go ahead.
One word.
One sentence. Go ahead.
One sentence. I just want to thank all of you. Okay, I'll give you 2, maybe 3. First, I want to thank Fran Hermes. I would not be in this wonderful community. We all know Fran with Emunah of America. I would not be here tonight had it not been for the vision of this woman to bring me here to speak at the Emunah Tea, which was fabulous last month. But then I got to meet this fabulous dynamo, another dynamo of a woman, who brought me up here to greet you. And I want to tell you, when I was here last month, Fran set up a meeting for me to meet with Assemblyman Kaminsky, Todd Kaminsky, and I didn't have the opportunity to meet with the Assemblyman Dov Hiken, but I want to commend these incredible men, because after we had our meeting, I showed them the resolution that we passed in Tennessee. How many of you heard about the resolution we passed in Tennessee to stop BDS? It was the first resolution in the country. Resolution. And we brought it here. I submitted it within 4 days. Record time. That resolution was introduced and passed in the New York State Assembly. So, ladies and gentlemen, if I need anything done in a hurry, I know where to come. So God bless you. I look forward to seeing you all later this week. And yes, we are going to stop BDS. We're not just going to stop it. Ladies and gentlemen, we are out to crush it. God bless you all.
would now like to introduce the moderator who is going to lead our three guest speakers. Former Congressman and newly appointed leader of the Queens Republican Party, and except for his inaugural party, this is his first major appearance in office currently, and he told me this is the first time he thinks in about 25, 30 years that he's even visited the 5 towns. Former Congressman Robert Turner.
Thank you, Cindy. Your attendance here, this huge turnout, is a testament to just how important this issue is. We are blessed tonight with 3 speakers. Each has a unique knowledge and input and viewpoint, which I think you'll find very interesting. Each of our speakers will get about 10 minutes, followed by a Q&A. I urge you, the Q&A, please stay on topic. We'll have enough to talk about, believe me. Our first speaker tonight is Maud Klein. You ready, Mr. Klein?
Well, thank you, Congressman Turner, Congressman Lee Zeldin, the assemblymen that are here. First of all, I have to quickly announce, as my wife instructed me to before I speak, I have Tourette syndrome. It's a neurochemical disorder. I make sounds I can't control. So when you hear strange sounds, it is not a mental disease. It is a neurochemical disorder. Anyhow, so there it is. It's that kind of stuff. Being with all of you here tonight is really my and our privilege and honor. You people in this room are the courageous, clear-thinking Jews and non-Jews for whom the mantra "never again" is not just a 2-word slogan. It is a call to action. That's why you're here. That's why we're here. A leader of a Middle East country said after the deal was done this week, he said, "God has accepted the nation's prayers, our nation's prayers. We must thank the all-powerful God for this wonderful blessing. All our objectives have been met." These were not the words of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. These were the words of the planner of the Khobar Tower attack in the Middle East, where 19 U.S. Marines were murdered. These were the words of the planner of the massacre of 85 people at a Jewish community center in Argentina. These are the words of a man who calls Hezbollah a legitimate political party and Israel a terrorist nation. That man is the Iranian president, the terrorist Hassan Rouhani. When the president of the Islamic Republic of Iran, the biggest supporter of Islamic terrorism, who arms and funds the murder of innocent Christians and Jews around the world, makes such a statement of deep gratitude and appreciation about the Iran deal, we must all shudder in fear and unite against this disastrous deal. And the day after the deal was signed, the rallies were held with Iranian leaders Khamenei and Rouhani screaming, with thousands of people cheering, "Death to America, death to Israel," after the deal was signed. With Khamenei saying, "Our policy toward our number one enemy, America, will not change. We won't surrender to U.S. demands to stop supporting Syria, Hezbollah, Hamas, and Islamic Jihad. Changing this course," he said, "would be against the Koran." These people are serious. These people are serious, ladies and gentlemen. They are Shiites who believe that the 12th of a succession of imams, direct descendants of the Prophet Muhammad, went into hiding in the 9th century and will one day return to this world after a period of a cataclysmic war to usher in an era of stability and peace under Islamic rule. Their own constitution opens up by saying, "We hope that we will witness the establishment of a universal holy government and the downfall of all other governments." This deal, does it dismantle any part of the nuclear program? The centrifuges which are used to make nuclear weapons, there were 19,000 of them. They can keep 6,000. None are dismantled or put in storage. Uranium is not shipped out. it's kept in storage. They can enrich to 3.67%, and I can tell you I discussed this issue when I worked with the greatest physical chemist in the world, Linus Pauling, for 20 years. When you enrich to 3.75%, you can quickly, in a matter of days or weeks, enrich it to a level where you can make nuclear weapons. So it's meaningless that we keep the enrichment at a low level. They've already been cheating on the deal already by increasing the nuclear fuel against the deal, purchasing nuclear compressors, which is not permitted under the deal. They're cheating already. They can continue research and development under this deal to make faster and better centrifuges, to reduce the breakout time when the time comes. They're not dismantling the Fordo nuclear plant, the Iraq plutonium plant. It's being changed somewhat, but it's not being dismantled. There's supposed to be robust inspection regime in history, the most robust inspection regime in history, to check out anywhere, anytime, whether they're developing nuclear weapons. Do you know that under this deal, no American nuclear inspectors are allowed to enter Iran's contested nuclear site? And nobody from the P5+1, the countries that were involved in the deal, they cannot go to any of them. It can only be the IAEA. We have to trust only them. And outside of going to this designated nuclear facility, Natanz, if they want to go anywhere else in the country, the military facilities, any other facilities we find out about, Iran has the right to deny international inspectors access to any undeclared nuclear site. The denial is then adjudicated by a committee on which Iran sits. It then goes through several other bodies, all of which on which Iran sits, and even if the inspector's request prevails, the approval process can take at a minimum 24 days before we can inspect. This is absurd. What happened anywhere, anytime, ladies and gentlemen? This deal requires that America and others will train Iran how to protect its nuclear facilities from sabotage by Israel or anyone else. It requires it. After 5 years under this deal, the embargo on their purchasing sophisticated conventional weapons ends. After 5 years, they can purchase any sophisticated weapons from Russia, China they want. After 8 years, they can purchase any missiles they want. Now they're not permitted to purchase any of those things. This nonsense that Obama tells us there'll be a snapback on sanctions. It took years to put these sanctions together. There's no way, if they start cheating, Russia, China, and the others who are making billions of dollars in deals with Iran are going to suddenly snap back. It's nonsense. And after 10 years, ladies and gentlemen, the enrichment, which is restricted, the restriction ends. So after 10 years, they can enrich uranium to bomb level, and they can begin to build a nuclear weapon. So this provides a pathway, this deal, for Iran to develop nuclear weapons. And the journalist Amir Matagi, who defected from Iran, said during the negotiations in which he sat, the U.S. negotiating team was mainly there to speak on Iran's behalf and convince the others of this deal. That's what a defector from Iran said. And what's even worse, or just as bad, this deal allows Iran to get $150 billion in frozen assets. They'll be unfrozen. And with the reduction of virtually all the sanctions, $40 billion a year in money. This is a country that funds and arms more Islamic terrorist groups than anyone on the face of the earth. They have 80 jihad centers in South America training jihadists and to come to America and, God forbid, to attack us as well. Ladies and gentlemen, this is nothing less, in my opinion, than aiding and abetting the enemy of America. Congress should begin to discuss, what does aiding and abetting the enemy mean? Because of this deal, people will die, Islamic terrorism will flourish dramatically throughout the world. Not to mention, the Mideast countries, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Turkey, will begin to want to start and develop nuclear weapons as well. Why is Barack Hussein Obama doing this? Why is he doing this? In today's New York Times, ladies and gentlemen, Prince Bandar bin Sultan, who was the Saudi Arabian ambassador to Washington, said, not only will the deal wreak havoc in the Middle East, he said, Mr. Obama is knowingly making a bad agreement. Knowingly, not out of naivete. Why did President Obama make this catastrophic deal, which funds and arms the Hitlers of the Middle East, Rouhani and Khomeini, funds and arms the Nazi Germany, the Middle East, Iran? They're calling for the murder of all Jews, and Christians as well, I might add. Why did Obama lie to the American people and our allies that he would make no deal? And he said this repeatedly for many, many months, unless every part of the nuclear program is dismantled. Why is he aiding and abetting one of our most dangerous enemies? Is it for legacy? Is it out of naivete? Is it because he's inept? Let me just say a few things and I'll end with this. In a United Nations speech, President Obama in 2012, that's 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, said this, quote, the future must not belong to those who slander the Prophet of Islam. It's an exact quote. Why did President Obama refuse to attend the 4 million strong anti-Islamic rallies, terrorism rallies in France? Why has he refused to ever use the term Islamic terrorism? Why has President Obama ordered all official military and U.S. government documents to delete and never use the term Islamic terrorism? Why, when the psychiatrist Muslim radical Nid al-Hassan murdered 13 U.S. soldiers, did Obama call this workplace violence, not Islamic terrorism? Even this week, when 5 Marines were murdered by an Islamic radical, all he said was, this is a heartbreaking circumstance, not condemning Islamic terrorism. Why did he invite leaders and members of the Muslim Brotherhood, a terrorist group, to his speech in Cairo when Mubarak begged him not to? Why did Obama publicly proclaim that Mubarak must go when people were screaming for him to go, even though he was an ally who we could work with? But when Ahmadinejad was in power and hundreds of thousands of people were in the streets screaming for Ahmadinejad to go, Obama refused to say anything. He said, we don't meddle in another country's affairs when this radical terrorist Ahmadinejad was being urged to leave power. Why did President Obama release numerous Islamic terrorists from Guantanamo prison, despite the fact that experts say they're high risk? Why did President Obama release 5 top Islamic terrorists from the Taliban, from Guantanamo, in return for 1 U.S. deserter, Bo Bergdahl? Why did President Obama, when he was running for president, talk about, quote, the legitimate claims of terrorist groups Hezbollah and Hamas? Yes, he talked about their legitimate claims. And why, when he met with us so-called Jewish leaders at the White House, did he say, Israel is not serious about peace, and you leaders and Israelis must search your souls to see if you're serious about peace? I don't think you are, he said to us. But he argued that the Islamic terrorist regime of the Palestinian Authority and Mahmoud Abbas is sincere about peace. That's what he said to us. I was sitting 5 seats away from him. Why did Barack Obama attend an anti-Semitic, anti-American, anti-Israel church under Jeremiah Wright and called him a great man and a mentor? Why did he help organize Islamic racist Farrakhan's Million Man March? And why, when did Obama embrace the terrorist Muslim Brotherhood who took over Egypt but has been cold to the new Egyptian president and relative moderate Abdel Fattah al-Sisi? I can say many more proofs about this. He said nothing about death to America and death to Israel. He's never condemned them or demanded they retracted. And when the Palestinian Authority joined with Hamas in one government, Obama said we'll continue doing business with them, and he continued to send them $550 million of U.S. money a year. Even though Hamas was now part of the Palestinian Authority, this was an act of diplomatic terrorism. I worked with the great Nobel Prize winner Linus Pauling. He used to say to me after I analyzed data for an experiment, he said, Mort, what does the evidence require us to believe? Don't tell me about your hopes and dreams. Well, I ask all of you here tonight, what does the evidence, as I just skeletally described, require us to believe about President Obama's actions and judgment regarding radical Islam? All of you must call your members of the House and the Senate to fight against this deal. And against what this president is doing to our country, to the world, and to Eretz Israel. You must call your rabbis, and you must call your Jewish organization leaders to fight with all your heart and soul against this tragedy, this catastrophe. This is not a bad deal. It's an absolute disaster. I'll end with saying we've had many miracles, the Jewish people, extraordinary miracles. Israel's had many miracles. The 67 war, the 81 raid, the 82 fight against Lebanon, getting rid of the reactors in Iran and in Syria. It's really been extraordinary. Even though the whole world, most of the world is against us on this and is praising this bill, the whole world is wrong, we are right. They condemned us for bombing nuclear reactor. The whole world was wrong, we were right. The whole world was polytheistic. We alone preached belief in God. We preached the day of rest. They were wrong, we were right. The whole world mocked us as a lazy people for keeping Shabbos. The Jews, they said that we killed Jesus. The whole world was wrong, we were right. Of course we did no such thing. On and on and on. And today again, we alone are right and the whole world is wrong. As God told Joshua in our Torah, be not afraid, be of good courage. With the help of Jews and Christian Zionists around the world, with the power of the IDF, with the help of the Israeli people, with the help of Almighty God, Israel will destroy its enemies. The Torah promises that the Jews will be an eternal people. Unlike politicians, God doesn't break his promises. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much. Got a lot to think about. And a very tough act to follow, Congressman. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker, Congressman Lee Zeldin.
I know you didn't come here to hear us be politically correct tonight. You don't want us to mince words. And I see in your faces as you're listening to Mort speak the passion that you have for our country and American security, understanding that America just got played at the negotiating table. There's a strong, deep motivation amongst this crowd to want to do something about it. That's why you're here on a Sunday. I want to thank Cindy Gross for putting all this together. She worked so hard. And to the entire Temple Hillel community, it's great to be back. It's great to be joined with Congressman Turner, who I didn't have the opportunity to serve with, but he certainly left a mark because his name comes up frequently when I'm down in Washington. We have a great assembly. Used to be colleagues until December of last year, 4 assemblymen who I used to serve with, and it really says a lot that you're all taking time to be here with this community. It's a sad time for America's foreign policy as I listen to the Star-Spangled Banner and I think of the cost of that freedom that was earned and what American exceptionalism means when you sit down at the negotiating table as the President of the United States, the leader of the free world. That strength that you inherit at the table, you're not allowed to be equals when your counterpart on the other side of the table is the Republic of Iran. Just think of everything that wasn't even part of the negotiations. Iran's been overthrowing foreign governments, financing terror, the Houthis in Yemen, Assad in Syria, Hezbollah, unjustly imprisoning United States citizens, including a United States Marine, a pastor, a reporter, developing ICBMs, blowing up mock U.S. warships, pledging to wipe Israel off the map, chanting in their streets, "Death to America, death to America." And none of that was even part of the negotiations. Well, let's talk about what was in the deal. Tuesday morning, we all woke up. The entire international community glued to their TV as we learn of this deal that had now been reached. The President of the United States stood in the White House using terms like 24/7 and anytime, anywhere to describe the unfettered access that weapons inspectors would have with the Iranians. But if you actually read the deal, it's a very convoluted process. The Iranians have 14 days to respond. If they decide not to grant access, there's an international commission. That commission has to vote on what happens next. The Iranians then have a few more days to respond. And what happens if they decide not to grant the access that is requested? The President of the United States says the sanctions snap back. 65 days. The President of the United States stated that the sanctions would be, the relief would be phased in, while President Rouhani gave a speech talking about how the sanctions would go into place, the sanctions relief would go into place immediately, and none would be suspended. As I look around this room, I can't even imagine how many agreements have been entered into in life. An agreement is a meeting of the mind. If you disagree on material terms of an agreement, then there really is no agreement. Within 10 years, Iran's nuclear breakout time can be 0. It will be 0. There is no strings attached to the $150 billion that Mort just described. That money can be used by Iran to continue to finance terror. And as Mort referenced what happened in 2009 in the Green Revolution, when millions of Iranians rose up in the streets after an undemocratic election with the economy doing well and oil twice the price, we said as a matter of policy it was none of our business. And look where we are today. Now the president had another press conference a day later. And he challenged critics. What is the alternative other than war? A question was asked as if it was rhetorical, as if there was no answer. There's an answer. There is an alternative other than war. There is an alternative to America, the greatest nation in the world. There is an alternative other than war. It's a better deal. Now, I wasn't going to wait hours, days, weeks, months to announce what my observations were with regards to the deal. And the president he's trying to write off critics such as myself as because I came to my decision too quickly. America got played. What happens when the President of the United States, the next president, comes in January of 2017? God forbid we still have a Marine unjustly imprisoned in Iran, or that reporter or that pastor. Where's the leverage? The Iranians weren't at the table because they're good citizens of the world. They aren't there because Secretary Kerry asked nicely, or James Taylor offered to sing a song to them about how they would have a friend. They were there because the sanctions were working. And now, those sanctions will be gone. When the President of the United States goes to the UN Security Council, he is not circumventing me. He is circumventing the United States of America. He is circumventing all of you. Your voice, your representation, your right to review, debate, and be heard. I sat on the House floor for my first State of the Union this past January. In one part of this speech, the President said, "If you agree with me, I want to work with you." He said, I mean, you could watch the video of the State of the Union address. If you agree with part of what I say, I want to work with you regarding that part that we agree with. Dissension, debate, our discussion, our passion, the American way is embracing it, is embracing your voice. That's what it means to be a representative in Congress, or to be the President of the United States. They're called the President for a reason. They're not called a monarch. Now, I personally believe that this entire deal should be treated as a treaty. It would require 2/3 approval by the United States Senate. But the way that this is going to go down will require a 2/3 vote of Congress to disapprove. Now, I don't need to hedge. I don't need to spend the weekend in my little chair. I will tell you that I will be voting to disapprove of this deal, and I will encourage every member of Congress to do the same. If you count votes in Congress, you'll see that you have the largest Republican majority in the House since the 1920s, and a Republican majority in the Senate, but there aren't enough Republicans to disapprove of this deal. I'm looking at around this room, and I can't even imagine the kind of relationships that are here with influential New York and American congressional Democrats. That pull, that special connection that you have to those who are taking time to review and to decide for themselves, it is up to you what the future of this deal is going to look like. It's not up to the United Nations. It's not up to the President of the United States. The final say is here in Temple Hillel and all across America in these corners where representatives are hedging. Here in New York, we have some of the most influential Democrats in America. And I'll tell you that Washington is looking closely at what Senator Schumer does, Congressman Israel does. And we not only need their support in disapproving of this deal, we need them whipping votes amongst their colleagues. Now, there's a lot of cordiality down in Washington, and people see each other at events. We get along, we shake hands. This is too important. I'm not looking to jam colleagues who are hedging and put them in a bad place. But they know what the right thing is to do. They know that this is a bad deal. They plan to be in office after President Obama leaves. And they are hearing from supporters who are telling them, this is important to me. You know it's a bad deal. I will never forget. And I will hold you accountable if you do not do the right thing. For me at this time, gosh, as far as the timing goes, I wish the timing wouldn't have been this good. I wish that we were standing here talking about a deadline getting pushed back again and what might happen next. I love my country. I won't ever apologize for it. I love America. One of the best songs in the world is standing here for the Star-Spangled Banner. I care about those who I've served with who still wear the uniform, those who currently are in Iraq and Afghanistan, fighting to keep us safe and free while we enjoy this company here. For all of you veterans who are here, there's an important way to say thank you for your service beyond shaking your hand or giving you a hug. For me, as a member of Congress, that duty to say thank you is making sure that your sacrifice isn't for naught. Making sure that the sacrifice of those men and women who are gone on their 6th, their 7th, their 10th deployment, time away from family, missing anniversaries and birthdays and holidays, believing in a cause greater than themselves, wanting to protect our Constitution, our freedoms, and our liberties, and that next generation not old enough even to vote, ensuring that they are protected, safe, and free. This is a duty not just about the United States of America in 2015, but what the world will look like in 2025 and beyond. And it is my vow, and it is my hope, that over the course of these next few days, weeks, and months, that together somehow we can figure out how to override a presidential veto, that we can figure out how to reverse course in America and protect this land that we love. When we say God bless America, we mean it. Deep down with passion, we love our nation's greatest ally in Israel, and we will not rest, we will not be silent, and that's why we're here, and that's why we'll keep fighting. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you very much, Congressman. Our last speaker, an old friend and supporter, and surprisingly, a Democrat, Dov Hikind.
First, I'm delighted to be here. You know, we were taking pictures before, and I forgot for a moment that we're not supposed to smile, and there's nothing to smile about. And we're faced with a very, very serious situation in terms of the Jewish people and in terms of America, the health, the well-being of the United States. There is no question in my mind, and I don't believe that there is a question in the minds of too many people, that this terrorist regime in Iran, the #1 sponsor of terror in the entire world, there is no question that they are laughing at us. They are laughing at us. They have reason to celebrate. They were victorious. America was weak. America made concession after concession in these talks. And this is not some minor issue. This is not what we had many years ago, selling AWACS to Saudi Arabia, which was a major issue years ago. This is about a rogue nation. This is about a country that supports Hezbollah, Hamas, and every terrorist organization in the Middle East attaining nuclear weapons. Do you know what that means? Do you understand the implication of that? And there is no question that they will have those atomic weapons. Atomic weapons in the hands of the Ayatollah? Do you know what that means for our people? Do you know what that means for the people of Israel, 6 million Jews? Do you know what that means for the United States of America as they develop ballistic missiles that will be able to hit America? President Obama, if you go back to 2 years ago, what the conversation was, what the deal was on the table, the red lines that we would not cross because it would endanger the world. Do you remember the days when President Obama spoke about the military option? I mean, what are we, Nobody wants war. And sometimes you try to avoid war like Chamberlain in 1938. Chamberlain returned from Munich from Heil Hitler, and he brought peace to the world in 1938. For 3 weeks, the editorials in the newspapers, he was the hero. Chamberlain was the hero. He avoided war. They sacrificed Czechoslovakia, threw it into the ocean. And we know the price that was paid. The Nazis, Hitler, they were laughing at Chamberlain. And the Iranians are laughing at our president and at America as I speak here tonight. Tonight is not about listening to speeches. We can talk about Obama. We know his record. We know the story. For those of us who have followed Ally by Michael Oren, who's not exactly a right-winger, we understand he is not exactly the best friend the Jewish people have ever had. We get it. We know that. He's not the great friend of Israel. No question about that. That is very, very clear. But Israel is faced with a threat, and the Middle East, and ultimately we in the United States from Iran. And I don't think it's that complicated. I don't think it's that difficult to understand the basic fundamental things in this deal. It's interesting. Senator Schumer, our senator, nice guy, I don't know, did he appear on the Sunday shows today as he does every single Sunday on nonsense or whatever he's doing that's so safe to talk about? So we're waiting for Senator Schumer. He's examining this. I don't know why it takes him such a long time. He's a pretty smart guy. I don't know what he's waiting for. By the way, somebody else right away got it. Right away understood, but on the wrong side. And we will be there to remember. Hillary Clinton didn't take much time to say this was a great deal. How sad and pathetic that is. She had no difficulty. By the way, it's so interesting. You know, I'm a Democrat. The truth is, I'm a Jew. And being a Jew is more important to me than being any particular label. And I just want to explain that. You see, my parents went to Auschwitz in 1944. That's part of my legacy. You see, Obama wants a legacy. I have a legacy. It is a legacy of my grandmother going to the gas chamber in 1944. That's my legacy. And when I see what is going on right now, when I see that a couple of days before the agreement, after the agreement, it doesn't make sense, ladies and gentlemen. Are we living in the real world? Is this a bad dream that we will wake up tomorrow morning? I mean, you have the millions of people in the streets of Tehran and cities throughout Iran chanting, "Death to America, death to Israel." That doesn't mean anything. That's not real. That's not a real feeling that exists there. And we negotiate with this terrorist state. It's crazy. It's insane. The people of Israel. And we have our families there. We have our friends there. And if we don't have our family and friends, we understand what Israel means to every single person who cares about democracy, who cares about the Jewish people. Israel's survival, this is real, ladies and gentlemen. Israel's survival is in jeopardy. Make no mistake about that, God forbid. And therefore, the question becomes tonight, and for the coming days, for the coming weeks, and time is of the essence. It is an emergency, ladies and gentlemen. Things are burning. We're in trouble. We've got problems. Are we going to be there for our people? Are we going to be there as Americans standing up against this Munich This is Munich. There's a piece in Commentary that just came out today, Commentary magazine, that calls this deal worse than Munich, worse than Chamberlain 1938. And we have an obligation, ladies and gentlemen, the people of Israel, the leaders of Israel. How often does Netanyahu, Yair Lapid, Isaac Herzog, and every other political leader in Israel, how often do they stand together and say that this deal is a disaster for the Middle East, a disaster for Israel, and a disaster for America? They are all together because they understand the implications. Right now, as we speak, 100,000 missiles are aimed at Israel from Lebanon, from Hezbollah. By the way, that's not an exaggeration. It's not 99,000 or 90, we're exaggerating. We're rounding it off. 100,000 missiles are aimed at Israel. Many of those weapons received by Iran. Part of the deal here, ladies and gentlemen, $150 billion that the Iranians will have in their pockets within a couple of months. What can you do with $150 billion? There's good reason, ladies and gentlemen, why Hezbollah is celebrating in the streets of the Middle East, why Hamas is celebrating, why every terrorist organization is celebrating, why Assad of Syria. You know, the first people who came out and said and applauded this deal, it was so interesting to watch. Putin from Russia, great friend of America. The next person was Assad, the leader of Syria. What are they up to in that country? 300,000 people murdered in that country, and nobody cares. And of course, we can add to that list. This really gave me comfort when I saw that, ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy Carter thinks this is a very good idea, ladies and gentlemen. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the message, each and every one of you. You are an army. You have power beyond what you can imagine if every one of you would simply use it starting tomorrow morning. And the first person to get in touch with, and not to stop getting in touch with that person, is the Shomer Yisrael. Who is the Shomer Yisrael here in New York? Senator Schumer. He has said it 1,000,000 times. When he came to your synagogue, if he came here, I know in my community, every speech he makes, he talks about being, do you know what Schumer means? He says to the people, do you know what Schumer means? It means Shomer. I am Shomer Yisrael. Well, Senator Schumer, step forward and be a Shomer Yisrael now! So, ladies and gentlemen, you're not here to be entertained. You're here because you care. You came out tonight. It was a hot day, a long day. You could be home, relaxing, doing other things. But you love the Jewish people. You understand that this is one of the most serious situations that I can remember in my lifetime in terms of something confronting us. And the test is going to be, are we going to be there for our people? It's got to be better than it was in the 1940s when American Jews were not there. That's a chapter that's very, very sad. We will not let that happen again. So ladies and gentlemen, you get Senator Schumer's number, you put it on speed dial on your cell phone and at home, and you don't stop calling that number in Washington and New York starting tomorrow. And you don't ask him, you demand that he take a position. He understands. He understands quite well. By the way, could you only imagine for one moment, and this is not a partisan issue, it should not be, but it is a little sad when I watch that when there's a Democratic president, Democratic leaders and congressmen are very careful about doing the right thing. Can you only imagine if George W. Bush was in the White House doing the same thing? Schumer would have been online last week Wednesday. Last week Tuesday, he'd be criticizing a Republican president making the exact same deal. So ladies and gentlemen, it's our test. It's also our opportunity. And you don't have to worry. Can we make it happen? Can we get the votes to override? You don't have to worry about that. I am convinced if we do what we need to do, every single person who cares deeply about the well-being of Israel, there is no question in my mind that we will be victorious and that this deal will go into the garbage where it belongs. You know, I was going to talk about the deal. It's a farce. And more will come out, and it will be very, very clear. You know, some of it is so ludicrous, so preposterous. It's almost they think we're stupid. You know, if there's a violation or if there's a problem, you know, you gotta bring it to this one and that one, you know, this committee, that committee. I mean, the Iranians, even as many have said, even if they keep every part of this agreement, ladies and gentlemen, are going to have atomic weapons within a certain amount of time. Can you imagine that? What that means for them to have atomic weapons? I mean, it's unbelievable. America is under threat with ballistic missiles that they will develop. So, ladies and gentlemen, everybody here, an army, amazing, wonderful, and Jews throughout and non-Jews. I got to tell you a very interesting thing. You know, I appear on Neil Cavuto very often. I was on this past week on Fox Television. And every time I speak about these things, the letters, the emails by the hundreds that come in from all over the United States, from non-Jews who are amazing supporters of Israel in every part of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, with God's help, always God is part of the equation for me, with God's help and what you are going to do and what Americans are going to do all over the United States, we will be victorious in defeating this. Thank you very much.
Before we move on to our question and answers, I just have to really introduce two people who walked in because they have information that in regard to tonight and Wednesday and exact information of what to say and who to contact in Congress and in the Senate. I first want to introduce Liz Burney from ZOA, and she has a lot of paperwork and she has a lot of the accurate facts. Take this to your rabbis who are not here tonight. Take this to your presidents of your shuls and get this on your emails. Get this on your blast when you make your robocalls. These are the facts you need and you need to take to your congregation. And finally, I want to introduce Avi Posnick of Stand With Us. Avi is so passionate about Wednesday that his group has coordinated so that Stop Iran Now is going national in cities all across the country, and he took time out to be with us tonight. You want to tell your families in Florida, in California, in Illinois, wherever they might be, to look for the rally Wednesday because of people like Avi and groups like Stand With Us who are working 24/7 to make it happen. And he promised he will be back for a program about the work that his organization does, especially because it works with so many high school and college students. And now to the Q&A. I'd like to call on Chairman Turner and Michael Conigliaro.
Mike is going to go on the floor. Our impassioned and knowledgeable speakers are here. And again, I ask you, keep on topic, please.
My question is for Assemblyman Hyken. I know that New York State and every other state has a banking committee, banking commissioner's office, and I want to know what on a state level can you do to ensure that Iran is not violating any state banking regulations, and if anybody's also looking into that.
Well, I don't think anyone is looking into it right now. Right now, the emphasis and the concentration is, of course, on this deal in the Congress to do everything humanly possible that it be defeated after an override. I believe the Congress is going to vote it down. The president will veto it, and then the question will become, will there be enough votes to override the president? So it is an issue that can be looked at later on.
I think it's quite clear what's wrong with what Obama negotiated. My question is about Senate Republicans. The Corker bill, which passed, treated this as not being a treaty. At the time that was done, we didn't have the text of the treaty. Why do not Senate Republicans now, having the text, say this is in fact a treaty, the Corker legislation cannot modify the Constitution, and it's going to be taken up as a treaty? Why are Senate Republicans not doing that?
I would be in favor at any moment for this to be treated as a treaty. That it's my personal position that this should be treated as a treaty requiring 2/3 vote to approve it. So I can't stand here and defend people who have a different position than myself. I just think your point is very well taken, and that the president should be submitting this as a treaty. I wholeheartedly agree.
I want you to know that Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin submitted an amendment many, many weeks ago to call this a treaty, and they refused to bring it to a vote, thinking it had no chance whatsoever. And I will also tell you this. The major Jewish organizations, excluding ZOA, were lobbying against having such a bill become part of the vote on this Iran treaty. So they were working against it, the major Jewish organizations, all the ones you can think of. They thought it would be an embarrassing failure, that it could not pass. So as opposed to fighting hard for what's right, after all, every nuclear defense treaty America's ever had with other countries, SALT I, SALT II, START, all of them, they were all treaties. They all needed a 2/3 vote. The Jewish groups were afraid that it would lose and it would make them look bad. That's my only understanding.
I'm among friends. This morning I happened here, and it is okay. I think if among friends we can disagree agreeably. So I'd like to take exception as a survivor of the Holocaust, where my maternal grandparents perished, to lightly use that term. I don't think this is the Holocaust. I think we have prevented the Holocaust.
First of all, I just want to, I'm not sure I have to clarify because I know what I said. But you made a comment. I simply pointed out with regard to my own family and the Holocaust, that was not something that was relevant except in the sense that the Prime Minister of Israel and the leaders of Israel have made this a situation of an existential threat to the people of Israel. That means that they are concerned. There's a poll out today in Israel, that the people of Israel, the number one concern they have is this agreement, because they understand you're dealing with a regime that talks about the destruction of the state of Israel. So the idea of, God forbid, a Holocaust directed against Israel is a very real thing. And I'm not that impressed. The agreement in Vienna is orchestrated by the United States of America, Obama and Kerry. The Chinese, the Russians, and the rest play a very little of a role. It's about Obama and his legacy. That's what this is all about. That's what it's about.
It's my opinion. People can disagree with me. As I said before, maybe I didn't express myself well. I do not believe this is about his legacy. I believe that he is sympathetic to radical Islam. I went through what he's done for 6 years. It's not about legacy. It's not about trying to stop Iran. This is what he believes. That's my opinion.
This deal, I have no concept of how America could do it for America. Did they forget 9/11? What if there was nuclear on that plane? That's number one. Number two, can you explain to me, even if there's a vote and there's a veto and you get to override it, the sanctions are gone already. How can you can't put them back without the other countries? Isn't it too late now to fight about this? And what can you do about that? My understanding as a layman from everything that I've read and everything that I've watched is that Russia, China, all the other countries have agreed to this. If America now backs out or unvotes it, they're not going to go back. You can't put back the sanctions now. How do you get out of the cow out of the barn already?
So here's the real, the reality of whether you treat it as a treaty or you don't. If you treat it as a treaty, you don't get 2/3 to approve it. Or you treat it under the current process and you get 2/3 to disapprove it, to override a presidential veto. The teeth of the sanctions, as you're getting at, is when foreign countries, foreign entities start putting teeth into the sanctions. That's what takes years to put these sanctions effectively into place. And that's one of the flaws with saying that the sanctions would just snap back in 65 days. This can't be looked at as circumventing Congress. This has to be looked at as circumventing the American people. Congress can disapprove of this deal and override a presidential veto. It's going to require a movement, an army, in order to change course in this country and reposture ourselves with regards to Iran. Understanding that
even if you do that, how do you get the other foreign countries to then agree again to unwind it? That's my
the foreign
question.
countries are unwinding the sanctions.
But
That's
you
the
can't
problem.
stop them. That's my question.
Can I just, I think
That's
it would
the
only
problem.
apply to the United States. Look, some of these countries, they're already in Iran. I think the German finance minister is already in Tehran this weekend. The Russians are making deals as we speak. The Chinese are involved as we speak making deals. So I agree. All this will do, if the override happens, then America, which is the most important country in the world, those sanctions will remain in terms of the United States. Look, we don't have all the answers. We know one thing. This is a very dangerous deal, and we need to do whatever we can here in the United States, the leading country in the world, the most important country in the world, the most powerful country in the world. We need to do the right thing. It's also about doing the right thing. By the way, and sanctions would continue as far as the United States is concerned. Only the United States, not the rest. You're right.
Let me just say, if we override this bill, if Congressman Zeldin and his colleagues override this bill, U.S. sanctions remain, U.S. banking system sanctions against Iran remain. It would show publicly that there's no diplomatic support in the U.S., and it would make it much easier for the next president to get rid of this deal. So this vote is very, very important.
I just want to also recognize the woman in white I mentioned before. She has information, very important. Helen Freeman just came from Israel, from the airport to join us tonight. American Friends for a Safe Israel. So thank you for joining us after your long journey.
My question is addressed to both congressmen. How influential are you to be able to get your colleagues to vote in favor of the bill
So now, those of you who
And
are
I know
here...
that, excuse me, I know that many favors are exchanged all year long in both houses of Congress, but if you can get other people to support you.
When, for those who were here when I visited Temple Hillel a couple months ago, I shared with you the point about this pin that I get when you... It's a member ID when you're in Washington. There are 435 members of the House of Representatives. My seniority goes on the back of my pin. The number out of 435 is 434.
You're not last.
So you are
not
looking.
last.
I'm not last. Ryan Zinke of Montana is 435. I would want to say that's because he's a Navy guy, but it's because his last name is Zinke. Sorry to the Navy folks who are here. Just a quick joke. I will tell you though, I am the highest ranking Jewish Republican in Congress. I'm also the lowest ranking Jewish Republican in Congress. So I will say this. The Republicans are going to be there. I mean, I would be surprised. On a conservative end, I would say it would be almost unanimous. That's being as conservative as possible. The key to be able to override a veto is getting congressional Democrats. And do I have influence with the congressional Democrats? Not like Chuck Schumer does. Seriously, not like Steve Israel does. I will.
Well, yes. I mentioned Schumer before because he is probably the most important person, not only to get on our side. Watch carefully. It's not only getting him to say, I will vote against, it's using the tremendous capabilities and strength and power that he has to convince others. A lot of people are waiting and watching to see what he will do. Wait. But I mentioned Schumer, and I imagine there are other congressmen out there who are going to feel insulted that I didn't mention their name tonight, that they too should be contacted. I want to mention one other person because I know he's very important. And he's from the island here, I believe. His name is Steve Israel, Congressman Steve Israel. Where is he on this? What is his position? And he is very, very important. He's not just another member of the United States Congress. So, ladies and gentlemen, how successful we will be is totally in your hands. And I don't want to scare you, only in your hands. In the hands of people throughout, people who care, people who are going to act. But I would like to ask, how many people, I asked earlier, I said, every single person here is going to be calling Senator Schumer. And they're going to do it, let's say, every other day and just make it very clear where you stand. And if you're a Democrat, say, I'm a Democrat. Important in this particular case. I want to, by raising your hands, I'm not asking you to swear, I'm not asking you to take an oath, but I want to ask, tell me if you are going to make this effort with Senator Schumer. Okay, let me tell you something right now. We will win. No question about it. And Steve Israel and the Democrats. And I want to say something about Congressman Zeldin. I'm a Democrat, so I can, and by the way, I had the great pleasure of supporting Congressman Turner when he ran. And that was one of the great victories of our community. But I want to say, Congressman Zeldin, I don't care, Republican, Democrat, he stands up for the right things, and he cares about our community. And that's what matters. It's not about Republican or Democrat. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know I'm going to be very busy on this issue. Nothing is more important to me. I represent Borough Park, Midwood. Nothing is more important than this issue. And I want to tell you, you've given me tonight chizuk, strength, because the people that raised their hands, and it was almost unanimous, some of the people who didn't, maybe they're tired, it's been a long night, they just didn't want to raise their hands. But I am incredibly encouraged because I believe that you are going to do this. This is critical for Israel. This is critical for the Middle East. This is critical for America. Thank you.
First, of course, I wanted to say thanks to Cindy for putting this remarkable program together. And thank you also, Cindy, for giving our July 22nd rally so much coverage and so much impetus. We need all of you there. We need every single one of you there. My question, Congressman Zeldin, is really directed to you because you made reference to the United Nations. I know tomorrow morning, I believe, this is what I read, that tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock in the morning, no time is wasted, the United Nations is going to adopt the resolution supporting this in something called utter silence. I understand that this utter silence means that it's universally approved by the Council. And if Israel should have to object to that, then it will clearly alienate itself from the rest of the international world. Could you clarify that for us?
I think that tactically, this is a move that is being supported by the administration. It would be an effective force multiplier in their effort to say that any effort to disapprove of a deal would be illegal, it would be against international law. I think that this is part of the plan, is to get the United Nations Security Council to approve of the deal, which would undercut efforts by the American public and Israel.
So
now,
does this eliminate the effect of the Congress? Does it change the fact that you might override?
In the president's, this is my own personal opinion, the president views himself as both branches of government in this situation. He's the president, he is not a monarch. He is acting on behalf of Congress. He is acting on behalf of the American public in making this move to go to the United Nations to get them to approve of the deal, and what the message would be going forward as we debate this over the next couple of months is that the American public can't reject it. He's saying now that we can debate it, but if you listen to his words closely, he says, but if you disapprove of it, I'll veto it. We are allowed to have this meeting. We are allowed to debate the merits of what he did, but we're not allowed to disapprove of it. For the future of this country, this is a debate not just about now until the end of Obama's next term in office. Quite frankly, it's more significant than the end of the next person's term in office. In the life of a nation, as Prime Minister Netanyahu said before Congress, in the life of a nation, 10 years, 15 years is but a blip. This is a tactical move by the President of the United States. He is going to work on getting the United Nations Security Council to approve of the deal, and then the messaging will become that we are not allowed to disapprove it. Israel is not allowed to disapprove it. And I will add one other thing, by the way. One side note. I serve on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. We had a hearing with regards to the Palestinian Authority bringing charges to the ICC against Israel. I will tell you that that crowd was filled with Americans, most of whom were carrying signs about bringing the Israelis up on war crimes. And from my vantage point, seeing these signs, I challenge those who were at that dais with me, who knew who those people were, because this isn't about just one deal. This is about the future of American security, the future of American foreign policy. Even when he goes to the United Nations, this is about the great debate that takes place amongst the army that the Assemblyman talks about. and the movement that starts here for a course correction for a better path forward. It does not matter. It does not matter what we are told after the United Nations acts. What matters is what the American public wants. It's the power of our voices. It's our voices at the ballot box, and it's our voices in between. It's our actions blowing up that phone, making sure that our voices are heard. We need to fight through the rhetoric that we hear from the administration and the power that is influenced by the UN.
Helen, I just want to mention to Helen's question that leaders, not just Republican leaders of the Senate and the House, asked the President of the United States not to bring this to the United Nations. It was Democratic leaders who asked the President, major Democratic leaders asked the President not to bring it to the United Nations. And of course, Obama is doing exactly what he wants to do. This is about him and what he wants to make happen regardless of anyone else. So they tried, even the Democrats.
So in other words, even after his term is finished, this might have impact on future presidents if the United Nations adoption carries weight.
It definitely carries weight. You know what? We need to worry about one thing at a time. Let's worry about defeating this. We'll worry about the next president later on.
So I'll address this to Congressman Zeldin. How about some creative approaches to opposing this, such as attacking, not just attacking this directly, trying to get the trying to overturn a veto that Obama has promised, on the disapproval vote, but also taking approaches such as we're going to defund, unless you look at this as a treaty, unless you submit this as a treaty, we're going to defund the UN. Unless you submit this as a treaty, we're going to defund the State Department. Let's think. What creative approaches can we bring, and can the Republicans are the majority in Congress, and so a lot of this they can do. They do have the power to do. What creative approaches can we bring so that we're not stuck with this ridiculous reversal of the 2/3 to disapprove something instead of needing 2/3 to approve it? Thanks.
So first off, I want to be abundantly clear. This is treated as requiring a majority vote to disapprove. The president will veto, and then it will require 2/3 to override it. I have made the pitch time and time again as to why this should be treated as a treaty. It's not being treated as a treaty. Now, we're on a collision course because the government is funded until the end of September. So everything related to the power of the purse, there is going to be a very real important budget debate. We're coming up to our debt limit cap. We want government functioning. We want America secure. As timing-wise, as far as what to do with the power of the purse, it's very important to note that our government is funded until the end of September. So when we're going through August recess, there's going to be a discussion as far as what to do with the Iran deal. There's also going to be a debate about what to do as we hit our debt limit cap and what we should do at the end of September. And timing-wise, it's all naturally related. So you have the power of the purse, and you have the congressional action with a resolution of disapproval. Tactically, I think it's important that, we need to understand that, you all are here. We have friends and family, people in our community who still need to understand maybe they were busy the last few days, working, maybe 2 jobs or 3 jobs. Maybe they were on vacation, maybe they are spending some extra time with their family. It's important that we have conversations with people in our lives to let them know what makes a good deal or a bad deal. What they can do, what we can do to empower the people to grow the army that the Assemblyman so talks about in motivating us to action. Tactically, we have the use of social media, emails, earned media. This rally on Wednesday, it's important that the amount of people who are there on Wednesday, it's a big difference between Cindy showing up and there being 100 people or 25,000 people.
let me just say, I spoke to Senator Ted Cruz this week, and he told me that he is moving to stop funding of the State Department and stop appointments in the State Department best he can. He's doing exactly that.
I would like to thank and I would like to give a round of applause to our panelists who are brilliant.